Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Say It Loud, Random Slabs of Music History, the show where each week my guests and I talk about a different random piece of music history. This week I'm very happy to have my special guest, Michael Gonzales, on. Mike, say hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Aren't you? This is now, you're definitely well-versed in the radio show guesting business here.
That's my second time, if you call that well-versed.
Sure.
Yeah, that's I'm a veteran.
You're a vet already. I'm going to start with our disclaimer. Welcome to Say It Loud. My name is John Terry, and I'm the producer of this show. The things that you will hear over the next 50 minutes represent the views of Say It Loud and the people making them. All opinions and quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer, guests, and callers. River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the content of this program. And so we have Mike on, and we sort of have a theme going of global music and also music related to struggles. You want to tell us a little bit about what we're going to listen to?
Sure, yeah. We spoke a couple of weeks ago about this idea I had, kind of based on the first song that we'll play, and we'll get into that in a minute. Something I've been thinking about a lot. Just being involved in social justice movements in the U.S. here for a long time, I've been thinking a lot about kind of the role of culture in the movements, and just so sick of mindless chants and just boring marches, and just being a student of music around the world, just thinking about how we need to really infuse our movements with more music, more just sort of joyful, exciting, artistic expressions. And so kind of chose a few. I made a long list that I sent to you a couple weeks ago, culled it down, and I think I've got way too much to talk about today. So we're going to do a follow-up show sometime in the next couple of weeks as well. Okay. We're going to focus really on music from around the world. I know we're going to miss a lot. We're really going to focus on Latin America, a little bit on South Africa. We'll see if we get to Scotland and England. I doubt it. But so we're just going to hit a couple spots in the world and kind of talk a little bit about what I know. I'm not an expert in most of this, but I have some background in the history as well as just the artists themselves. So, we'll see where we go, and I hope to have a lot of discussion about this. So we'll see how many songs we can actually get through. All
right. And as we said, this will be at least a two-parter here. So, we'll be in no hurry so we can chat about these things. And I don't know. Do we want to start out with the song? Do we want to start out with the description, get a song going, and come back and chat?
Maybe we could talk a little bit about this first song. Yeah. This was kind of what jump-started the idea. The song is called Bella Ciao, and in some ways it's sort of like a leftist cliche. I kind of hesitate to start with this song, but really in the United States, a lot of the stuff we're going to be playing tonight, it really is not very well known. So I'm confident that a lot of people may have heard this song, and a lot of people probably haven't heard this song. Just give a little background about the song. I will say, first of all, it's in Italian, and there's 1,000 different versions. I picked one that I found on iTunes that I particularly liked by a group that I don't know much about, the Modena City Ramblers, and it's just a cool song. It really has its roots in World War II in the partisan movement, the Resistenza Partigiana, which is really the anti-fascist movement, and the song relates to that. Perhaps maybe we should listen to the song. We can talk a little bit about it, kind of go over some of the lyrics, some of the meaning. I don't speak Italian, but I do have a translation here. So yeah, it's kind of a cool song. This is kind of a modern, updated version. But like I said, there's a lot of different ways to play the song. I've heard it by Russian choral musicians, and I've heard it done just really like pop music, and I've heard it done like lounge style, and I just kind of dig this version.
That's kind of interesting in itself. We can maybe talk about that too. The proliferation of the tune,
which I'm fascinated by, and we'll get into that a little bit. So yeah, we'll just start with this song, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about it. Go ahead.
Oh, you hit play. We're going.
Una mattina mi sto svegliato con bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao. sbagliato e ho trovato l'invasore. Oh partigiano, portami via. Oh bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Partigiano, portami via, perché mi sento di morire. E se io muoio da partigiano, oh bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Se io muoio da partigiano, e tu mi devi seppellire lassù in montagna. Oh bella ciao, ciao. Seppellire lassù in montagna e sotto l'ombra di un bel fiore. E le genti che passeranno, oh bella ciao, ciao. E le genti che passeranno e mi diranno che bel fiore. E questo è il fiore del partigiano. Oh bella ciao, ciao. E questo è il fiore del partigiano, è morto per la libertà. E questo è il fiore del partigiano, è morto per la libertà.
All right, and we're back.
Bella ciao, which
Bella
means,
ciao.
let's test your Italian.
Beautiful goodbye or
Beautiful
hello.
goodbye.
Or yes,
Yeah,
okay.
in this case, beautiful goodbye.
Beautiful goodbye.
Yeah, like I said, the song it comes from the Italian, the anti-fascist resistance movement. They call it the Partisans, the Resistenza Partigiana. I don't speak Italian, which was a coalition heavily communist, but there were socialists, Christian Democrats, some anarchists involved. This was World War II. The song itself really is in reference to, they don't specifically mention the fascists, but they talk about the enemy, and the song itself really is in reference to it. The beautiful goodbye is the fact that you are going to go out and go into the mountains. You're gonna fight, and you might not ever come back. And so, beautiful goodbye. Una mattina mi sono svegliato. One morning I awakened. Oh, bella ciao, bella ciao. I woke up and goodbye, beautiful goodbye. I woke up and I found the invader. And you go on through the lyrics, and they talk about, if I die as a partisan. If I die, bury me under the shade of a beautiful flower, and it's just kind of a very poetic song. The lyrics, the author of the lyrics is unknown, like with a lot of folk music and with a lot of traditional music. It's just been lost to time, and really the song itself, where the tune comes from, is kind of a mystery as well. We'll get into that in a little bit. One of the things I wanted to say, and which it kind of leads into our next song. So one of the things I wanted to say before that, which we kind of hinted about, was the fact that this song has become so ubiquitous in socialist movements and in socialist countries, and it's really become kind of a standard, during the 1960s and 70s and 80s in those countries that were, so-called socialist countries, Eastern Bloc and in Russia, and it really was a song that was kind of embraced by, from what I understand, embraced by the leadership, and it just became a very, very kind of popular song. And I have no idea why or how that happened. I mean, I guess I understand why, because it's a beautiful song, and it has that, it kind of harkens to, the good fight, fighting against the fascists is the good fight. How it happened, I don't know. I've really been trying to do a little bit of research on this song, and I haven't read any books on it, but just doing some basic internet research, and have not been able to find out much about how it became such an ever-present, just such a powerful song. And I will talk a little bit about why I chose this song. The first time I heard this song, I was in Chiapas, Mexico. I was studying with the Centro de Lenguas in Oventic, Mexico, in Chiapas, which is a language school run by the Zapitistas. And we're going to talk a little bit about them in a minute, because we're going to get into the Zapitistas. They actually have like a theme song, which is kind of rad. And so I was in this little cabin, you might call it, in sharing these bunk beds with a bunch of other foreign Americans and people from Denmark and other places. And as I was drifting to sleep, there was a gathering of the Zapatistas in the area, and they were playing guitar and they were singing. And as I drifted to sleep, I could hear this song, and it was just kind of like such a beautiful and powerful moment. And when I asked people around, what was that song? Somebody had heard of it. When I got home, I looked it up, and I just, had no idea what, the history and kind of the meaning behind it. And so, that's going to lead into not into our exactly the next song, but just, coming up here, we'll talk a little bit about the Zapatistas. But I will say that we were going to talk a little bit about where the music comes from, and it's kind of a mystery. A lot of people thought it came from an earlier folk song, and on the internet it said they thought it was sung by rice weeders. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but apparently in 2006 there surfaced a recording from 1919, early klezmer recording by a guy named Mishka Ziganov. I'm not sure how you say that. He was a Ukrainian klezmer musician. And so klezmer music is a sort of Yiddish style, Jewish style music. And this song, and we're not going to play the whole thing. We'll just play a little bit of the beginning. You guys can be the judge of whether you think this song if Bella Ciao comes from this. I'm willing to bet it comes in part from this song. If you listen to the song, really just the beginning of it kind of just really is very, very similar. And then other parts of the song, not so much. So we'll get that going. It's called Koilin. And we'll just play like a minute of it.
All right. So that's a couple of things. One, I think it's really interesting to think, I think that probably people in the United States have this problem maybe more than elsewhere in the world, but to think about like the global nature of this, like the United States folk music seems so, I don't know if Americans want to keep it, but it just really, even with major recording stars, Woody Guthrie, really famous, and we'll maybe hear from him later, the Bob Dylans of the world, but like this folk tradition in the United States, you don't really see, like Canadians picking it up and taking these songs as their own. Like, this is really interesting that Italians would be taking this klezmer song to begin with, and then that people would be looking at, obviously there's the socialist connection, but you could make that argument about several songs in the United States folk tradition that just don't have that appeal, I guess, or don't get that legacy.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about as well is the idea of the klezmer, the Yiddish music. This is a Jewish tradition, and while the fascists in Italy were not exactly the same as the Nazis and their persecution of Jews. They definitely were persecuting Jews, and especially once they were really linked up with the Nazis. And so it just kind of makes me wonder what the connection between the fight against the fascists and kind of what role Italian Jews played in this, or really, again, I have no idea about how this song came about and what the real history of this song is, and I would love if anybody who is listening has any more clue about it. Call in or just get in touch with us somehow.
Yeah.
And to talk about that, the international sort of meaning of this song. It's been translated into so many different languages. You go online and you can find different versions, different languages, and in Spanish, and in Portuguese, and in Turkish, and in Italian, of course, and in Russian. In the United States, not so much, but it has started to surface a little bit more recently. When I was in Mexico, when was this? 2007, maybe something like that. 2008, I was in Minneapolis, St. Paul for the Republican National Convention protest there. I was not there as a delegate, if anybody's wondering. And I was at one of the fundraiser and one of the radical marching bands that was going to be there at the protest the next day. Was at this fundraiser. And they played a really cool version of this. So I've started to hear this song played. I don't necessarily know the politics of this group, but they struck me as kind of having more of that sort of anarchist tinge to them. So while the song is definitely associated with sort of Marxist-style socialists and communists, it just seems maybe by that one anecdote that perhaps it has a place within the sort of anarchist, anti-authoritarian tradition as well. It's a beautiful song, something I enjoy playing, and just like I said, I don't speak Italian, but I can sing a lot of the lyrics to this song and do my best. I try.
And that's like I've had sort of this conversation about the blues before, but one of the things what makes for great protest music is a song that anybody can play, that you don't really necessarily have to be an expert musician, and that the words are sort of, this repetitive kind of jingle that everybody, so maybe you'll have the leader and then everyone can say Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao. And,
it's got that call and response to it. And, when I play it, I try to get people to, I'm a very amateur musician, and but I really like to do like sort of the sing-along style, and I play a lot of folk music, and so kind of the campfire style. And one of the reasons I like this song so much is you got that call and response, and you've got that really that sing-along style. So that that refrain of Bella Ciao, which is in every, I wouldn't say there's so much a chorus to the song as every single verse has kind of the chorus within it. And so no matter what, even if you don't speak Italian, if you don't understand any of the lyrics, if you don't remember any of the lyrics, that's the problem. I always have the problem of never remembering the lyrics. You can remember that part. Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao, Ciao. So,
which is it very much makes sense that those kind of songs, I think, can get picked up as the sort of kind of protest tune, right? Is that, and whether you even understand the language or not, the fact that you're looking around and saying, okay, well, we're all singing it together.
Yep.
So that's very important. Do we want to go on to?
Sure.
This
Let's.
is very interesting to me. The official sort of Zapitista song here.
Yeah. This. When I was thinking about what songs to include in this broadcast, obviously the origin of how I came to the song Bella Ciao, it made me think. Well, music is really important in movements around the world, and including among them the Zapatista movement, which I was in the Zapatista community at the time. And so, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Zapatistas. I wanted to talk a little bit about this song. Perhaps maybe we should talk a little bit about the Zapatistas before we get into it. I'm not sure how much knowledge, our listeners have about this. And John, I'm assuming you have knowledge about the Zapatistas.
NAFTA's not a good thing.
NAFTA is not a good thing. Yeah, they really came to, we'll say they really came to the attention of the world, even to the Mexican authorities. People didn't know they existed until 1994, the day that NAFTA went into effect, January 1st, 1994, when the elite of Mexico and the United States were celebrating. There was an uprising in Chiapas, Mexico, which Chiapas is the southernmost state in Mexico, and it came as a shock that there were these armed indigenous peasants they took over several cities, including one of the major tourist centers in Chiapas, San Cristobal de las Casas, and I mean they'd been around. Now we know they'd been around since the 80s, kind of clandestinely organizing. We should maybe take a step back. When people hear the term Zapatista, they might think of Emiliano Zapata, who was a Mexican revolutionary who was himself killed in, I should have looked this up, was it 1919, 1920, something like that, in the Mexican Revolution, fought in many battles, and he led armies. He was not from Chiapas, but he was also from a southern state, from the state of Morelos, and he was an indigenous peasant himself, you might call him that, and he was the leader of this group called the Zapatistas. And so in Chiapas, Mexico, in the 1980s and 1990s, they intentionally chose to call themselves the Zapatistas. And I mean, you can imagine probably why they would do that. It's just this name that's so well known in Mexico and really well known elsewhere, but they wanted to have that immediate connection with the people of Mexico. You know, Zapata, like so many revolutionary leaders, you know, you get I don't want to say co-opted because he was dead, but just his image and his name was
the myth.
The institutional the PRI, the Party of Revolutionary, what do they call them? The Institutional Revolutionary Party. You know, they had taken on Zapata as we're living in his tradition. Yeah, right. So to kind of to expose that lie, you call yourself the Zapatistas. We are, you know, in the true tradition of Emiliano Zapata. And so these, you might call them neo-Zapatistas. They claim to be patriots of Mexico in a sense that are in that same tradition of Emiliano Zapata. So 1994, there was an uprising. In many ways, it was linked directly to NAFTA. They were very much against the neoliberal model that NAFTA represented, and they had a very specific concern with NAFTA. In preparation for NAFTA, Mexico, in order to not to be in compliance with NAFTA, had changed their constitution. Article 29, I want to say, of the Mexican Constitution. This was something that was won in the Mexican Revolution nearly a century earlier. And this was basically communal land. Article 29 protected communal land, land that was owned by indigenous communities, mostly in southern Mexico, that was not privatized land. This was land that would be run as a community. And this was something that was won in part because of Emiliano Zapata. This was something he had called for, but this was something that wasn't really gained until about a decade after the revolution was over, when Lázaro Cárdenas, who was sort of like the Mexico's version of FDR in the 1930s, I want to say, came up with an actual plan, gave the indigenous Mexicans, and mostly in southern Mexico, this guarantee of communal land. Article 29 was taken away from the Mexican Constitution, and the Zapatistas, these communities, saw this as a direct threat. So they essentially declared war on the Mexican government, and they actually had a declaration of war that they nailed to the walls in San Cristobal de las Casas. Since then, they have kind of, in some ways, backed off from this claim of war, and they are an armed revolutionary group. They are guerrillas, you might say, in many ways willing and able to use their weapons. They still have them, but some of the comments from leaders recently have said, our weapons are sort of only a way of saying, here we are, a way to get the world's attention, and get the world's attention they did. So when they took over San Cristobal de las Casas and a whole bunch of other communities in Chiapas, the world had to take notice. And for the most part, their demands were articulated by an individual that we know of as Subcomandante Marcos. Marcos himself was not an indigenous Chiapaneca, not an indigenous individual from Chiapas. He was actually, from what we know, not to to demask him. But what we think is that he's this individual whose name escapes me, who was a college professor from Mexico City, who it was a number of individuals in the early 80s who were sort of fugitives, if you will, because they were members of revolutionary groups that had been outlawed, and they were on the run. And so there was maybe a half a dozen of them that went into Chiapas in the early 80s and living in the jungles at first, making no contact with the people who lived there. They went there to organize a revolution, to organize these indigenous Tzotzils and Celtals, and there's quite a few other indigenous groups that are essentially they are under the grouping of being Maya. So these different groups that they were gonna organize the revolution, and they were Marxists and very much statists. And Marcos has himself said, it took a while, but once they approached these communities, they changed. They were no longer the teachers. They were no longer the revolutionaries who were going to guide and lead the people, the vanguard, if you will. And he said they changed they stopped being teachers of revolution and they became students of the social movement. And so this Zapatista, we might call it Zapatismo. We want to know what do they believe in? What do they stand for? Well, a lot of times people use this term Zapatismo. And so these Zapatistas, their belief in Zapatismo is really a bottom-up sort of approach to revolution. There's a lot of phrases and catchphrases that they use to describe mandar obedeciendo, which is to lead by obeying. Various ways of looking at how they would organize their communities is really not a classical Marxist sort of approach. A lot of people say they're anarchists. Well, in many ways they are. Since this 1994 uprising, there were some definite battles, and the Zapatistas, to be fair, a lot of them were fighting with sticks. Some of them, when they took over these communities, they didn't have any weapons, and those who did have weapons, they were outdated, and they were just decimated in these battles. But like they said, their guns were a way of sort of saying, here we are. And they made good use of the budding internet technology, and Marcos himself, like I said, educated college professor. He became the spokesperson, subcomandante, the sub-commander, if you will, in which means that he's not actually the top rank. People say he's the leader. He's not like the top-ranking leader of this of the Zapatista armies, but he is sort of the spokesperson. And so very poetic. He's actually written books, and there's a very famous Mexican mystery novelist that he co-wrote some mystery novels with. He's written books of poetry. He became like a real sex symbol, even though nobody got to see what his face looked like. He wears a mask, and he's just really, he really took the country, captured the imagination of Mexicans. And so while they were being decimated, their popularity within Mexico spurred the people of the FA, Mexico City, and elsewhere to have mass mobilizations and protests, and the government really started to look like the bad guys. And so there has been, since the late 90s, a ceasefire, a truce, with the EZLN, which is the army, the Ejército Zapatista de Liberación Nacional, which is the Zapatista National Liberation Army. They're the guerrillas, if you will. But the Zapatista communities themselves have done some amazing things. So where I was when I was drifting to sleep and I hear this song Bella Ciao playing, I was actually in one of these communities where I saw nobody with guns. I did see people with masks on, but when I was around, they take the masks off. And they built these sort of autonomous communities. They call them the Juntas del Buen Gobierno, the areas of good government. And so they're not exactly anarchists because they have these areas of good government, but it's very, very decentralized. And in fact, their government, or there's no elected leaders. Everybody has to take a turn being in the government. And so what you do is you're a farmer. You're a campesino, and when it's your turn, they call you, and you go work, and you go live in the village, the Caracol, they call it. Is the area where the Junta de Buen Gobierno is, the area of good government, and your neighbors look after your crops, and you spend your month there or so, and then you go back and somebody else's turn, and so it's super decentralized.
Yeah, very fantastic. You get to be the janitor for 2 weeks, but you get to be the president of the company for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it's really rad. It's really kind of cool.
Yeah.
I could do a whole show on the Zapatistas. As you can tell, our clock is ticking, and I realize I've got so much more to say about them. I'm really such a huge fan, and the experience that I had there was so amazing. So I'll kind of cut it short. I'll say that one of the things I did learn. So I was there at this Centro de Lenguas, which is this language school where they teach gringos like me a little bit of Spanish, but really they teach us Zapatismo, and I didn't really learn much Spanish there, but I really learned a lot about how the Zapatista communities exist. And one of the things I also learned was that the songs are so important to these communities. In fact, I have with me, I know props make great radio, right? I have with me this songbook, Canciones Zapatistas, that they sold to gringos like me, and they do a lot of selling to people like me that they know they can get some money out. So they have all these songs that they've written, and then I'll let you take a look at it during the musical break. And one of the songs they actually taught us to sing, is the Himno Zapatista, the Zapatista hymn, which is sort of their, I might say, for lack of a better word, their theme song. And it's actually, just like the last song we heard, Bella Ciao, was based on a previous song. This was actually based on a specific corrido, the name escapes me. So it's in the form of a corrido, which is, a very famous Mexican style of music that is really sort of like popular on the borderlands. So a lot of the corridos nowadays are about running drugs. They're about the narcotraficantes. They have nothing to really do with revolution. But this corrido has all to do with revolution. And so I've actually got two versions. The first one, I just would like to play like 30 seconds of it. Mm-hmm. This is sort of the authentic Chiapas way that they would play it. And then I have another version, which is from the same CD. I actually got a Zapatista CD. They also sell CDs. That is sort of a more modern version of it, which I think is really, really rad. So we'll just start with the Himno Zapatista, and it's just, you're going to hear it's really low tech. Okay. All right. Okay, so we got through the first verse and the chorus there. For those that don't speak Spanish, just kind of give you a really quick translation. The song is about the Zapatista combatants, and the chorus, I'll just give you the chorus. It's basically vamos, 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 vamos adelante. So like we go forward, para que salgamos en la lucha avante, to take part in the struggle ahead, porque nuestra patria grita y necesita, because the fatherland cries out and it needs de todo el esfuerzo de los Zapatistas, all the efforts of the Zapatistas. And so it's this call for like, they do a lot. They have a lot of allusions to like the fatherland, patria, and so they're not anarchists in that sense, right? Yeah. And they've actually at some of their ceremonies they fly a Zapatista flag and a Mexican flag, and I think it's partly strategic. Because they're trying to garner support from the Mexican people. They don't want to be seen as distinct from Mexico. Their cause, really, they're asking for indigenous autonomy, but at the same time, they are calling out to other parts of Mexico and other parts of the world. And I know in the break you said they really embraced the technology, but they really embraced this sort of global vision. And so one of the things that they've done that's been really important is they have these encuentros intergalácticos, they call them, intergalactic get-togethers. And Marcos has said, we call them intergalacticos because, while we don't know if anybody from other planets has come, they're welcome to. And so they're really very broad. And the next song really kind of shows that in the sense that it's by a group. It's a group called Flor del Fango. I know nothing about this group. I tried to find information online. Nothing. I'm guessing they're from Spain, based on purely on the accent, but my Spanish is not great, and so I could be wrong here, but it's just kind of a really, really groovy version, a lot more modern. The CD I have has 4 different versions of this song by 4 different artists, and they've really, if you go to other parts of the world, you've got social justice movements, people know who these are, and a lot of people might know this song. So we'll hear kind of the more updated, modern version of it.
Another version, the Zapatista's hymn, and as we're talking about at the break there too, and especially, this is, again, I think that there's something about folk music that makes it extremely versatile. I'm flipping through the songbook too, seeing 2-3 chord songs, simple rhythmic structures, rhyming structures, right? So you can learn the songs in like 15 or 20 minutes, but
they're meant to be sung by anybody.
Yeah. And something interesting, just sort of before we went into the tune that you were talking about, we're talking about on the break here, is just that idea of sort of waving the Mexican flag, but also trying to keep your autonomy. There's a great a great article. I can't remember where I got it. I think one of my buddies gave it to me, and it's the Black Flag of Anarchy, and talking about like these college kids who are like, yeah, we're anarchists, and we're gonna have like a cadre to like figure out what's, like people mixing things that really politically just wouldn't make sense to mix, but it's really just a matter of they're just taking things that they like from the milieu around them, and really then it's up to somebody else to come in and sort of like, all right, let's define what you really actually are politically, whereas people's lived experience, they're just, it's like, well, we want this communal land and we want autonomy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't want to be Mexicans.
And the Zapatista movement really is driven by the base. Now they have this command structure within the military, the Zapatista military, and at the beginning, when I should say the beginning in the 90s, when they had this uprising, really the command structure was in charge, but there was a shift that happened. I don't remember exactly when this happened, and I remember reading about it, but that there was a moment there where the command structure, the comandantes who were in charge of the EZLN, the guerrilla army there, decided that they wanted, instead of the way it's supposed to be in a modern Western society, the army is not supposed to be leading. The army is supposed to work for the communities. We know that's not really how it happens for the most part in Latin America. But so what they did is they turned over power in a way to these juntas del buen gobierno. And so, what is their ideology? Well, it's not really super ideological in a way. It's really based on what the people want and need. Now, I'm giving an idealized version of the Zapatistas, and I've read some harsh criticisms of them by people who've been heavily involved. And so, like with any organization, that the sort of the picture that you want to paint to the world outside is really an idealized version. And so there's plenty to critique. And the reality of how many years has this been? Almost 20 years of being communities in resistance. You're going to have communities that are going to drift off and that are going to join these other. They have these other sort of mercenary forces, and the army has actually started giving bribes and money to other groups, and so it's really much more complicated than what they would teach us, at the Centro de Lenguas. But for the most part, I was really impressed by it. One of the things we also talked about was on the break was this idea of the Zapatistas waving the Mexican flag, and we talked about how First Nations, as you call them in Canada, I guess, or the Native American Indian groups in the United States, a lot of the tribal events or the nation's events, they have the American flag. And so it's just kind of interesting to see that connection with indigenous groups that do want autonomy, but they also are, maybe it's strategic, maybe it's true felt belief, but it's this idea that you're not trying to give up all the rights you have as an American or all the rights you have as a Mexican. You're trying to get as much as you can, as all people want to get all they can.
And also your claim to your part in the story, exclude us from the nation, then you exclude us from the story, which, essentially is part of the reason I think that some of that flag waving is so important for some groups is like, well, let's not forget, we were in World War I, we were in World War II. Like anything that you get to be patriotic about, don't exclude us because.
Well, and these groups were in the Mexican Revolution, right? They've helped forge the Mexican identity as much as anybody else did.
Do we want to? I think we will have time for another song and conversation about it. So do we want to move on to another song?
Yeah, so we'll stick with the Latin America, and I guess we'll just flow through to another artist that is really ubiquitous in other parts of the world, not so much in the United States. It's an individual named Manu Chao, who is a French origin, lives in Barcelona, I believe. Was originally in sort of like I don't want to say punk group, but I don't really know how you describe this group. Mano Negra, which was a group that was southern France. They sang in Spanish and in French. So he's heavily influenced in many ways by the Zapatistas. And so I kind of chose this artist both because of how well known he is in movement circles in the United States. People in the United States have heard of him, but much less so. But when I was in, when I was in Barcelona, and I talked to people from all over the world, and they'd all heard of Manu Chao. And when I was in Mexico, Manu Chao playing in the coffee shops everywhere was Manu Chao. And so, I actually have two songs that I chose by him. I don't know how far we'll get through here, but the first one's really short. And I chose this one because it actually starts with Subcomandante Marcos, and in this album, it was his first solo album, and Subcomandante Marcos. There's a picture of him in the liner notes, and there's actually like 2 or 3 songs where he samples. He uses samples a lot, where he samples Subcomandante Marcos. And this song has like 2, 3, 4 meanings, and so we'll listen to it. We'll talk a little bit about it. It's called Por el Suelo.
El general en jefe del Ejército Libertador del Sur, Emiliano Zapata, manifiesto zapatista en náhuatl.
Por el suelo hay una compadrita que ya nadie se para a mirar. Por el suelo hay una mamacita que se muere de no respetar. Pachamama, te veo tan triste. Pachamama, me pongo a llorar. Esperando la última ola, cuídate no te vaya a mojar. Escuchando la última rola, mamacita te invito a bailar. Por el suelo camina mi pueblo, por el suelo hay un agujero, por el suelo camina la raza, mamacita te vamos a matar. Esperando la última ola, Pachamama me muero de pena. Escuchando la última rola, mamacita te invito a bailar. Por el suelo camina mi pueblo, por el suelo moliendo condena. Por el suelo el infierno quema, por el suelo la raza va ciega. Esperando la última ola, Pachamama me muero de pena. Escuchando la última rola, mamacita te invito a bailar.
Okay. So, nearing the end.
Yep. We'll have plenty to go through. I don't think next time we won't even have to go. We don't even have to come to the United States. We can just continue with the world music because we're not even halfway through my list here.
Yep. Which happens here, which is fine.
Yeah, we got a little bit of a late start, but I just talk so damn much.
This is good. This has been, and I always enjoy having guests, and especially something like this. This is the first time we've had international music. First time we have had non-English performances at all here, so I think this is a really good thing.
I think we've had exclusively non-English performances.
Yes, we have. So, but really, I think that sort of, on some level, kind of is speaking to this theme that, there's something about music that obviously is sort of a language unto itself, but that really, I think, lends itself to a global idea of a struggle. And I think that it's sort of almost ironic that we have really like big folk music stars who have went on European tours and whatnot and have went around the world, but really you don't see a lot of that. No one's going to take up the Star Spangled Banner as their own somewhere outside of the United States, right? Or even some of these really
although to be fair, Star Spangled Banner did start as a British drinking song.
Oh.
Yeah, the tune itself.
There we go.
Was actually
there we
comes
go.
from a British drinking song.
And that's another thing about these folk songs. A lot of them, the beauty is when you just have public domain style, pick a tune, which, Solidarity Forever is John Brown's Body, right? Which also is like a sort of intentional. And I think that you're sort of alluding to that earlier, that you're actually, picking a tune that would have some political significance too. It's like, whereas Jews are being persecuted, you decide to pick this kind of tune, which is all sorts of interesting things about folk itself. And when we come back the next time, we'll be able to talk about more of the songs themselves. But before we do our last thoughts, as always, I'd like to tell everyone to come on down right now. As me and Mike were sitting here looking through the videos here, there are about 4 or 5 videos that are explicitly related to the things that we're talking about. So if you want to watch a video about Zapatistas, if you want to look at any sort of several different Latin American peace and freedom struggles.
We didn't get to the Chilean songs, but there's videos here on the Chilean struggle, and we didn't get to the South African songs, but I'm willing to bet they've got videos on perhaps Amandla or other important videos to that.
Come on down, as always, come on down to River West Film and Video, because it really is the coolest place in town to get your videos. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on a radio show here. That's the truth. So come on down. But we'll get a last thoughts time. And again, thank you, Mike, for coming on. And it might not be next week, but sometime in the very near future, we'll be able to keep this up, finish this off. So thanks for coming on. Let's hear your final thoughts.
Okay, so I'm just going to end here with talking about Manu Chao a little bit, and just that song itself. I just kind of wanted to get back to that song and how that song had so many layers of meaning. Now I speak a little bit of Spanish, and so I'm not even going to pretend to understand everything that's going on there. But it has this reference to the dance floor. You have got this. In the background, you've got this voice talking about, come on down, and we got this party going on. So you've got por el suelo, this through the floor, the dance floor, but you're also talking about kind of the underclasses, for lack of a better word, which is kind of a reference to the Zapatistas. The Zapatistas, they talk about abajo y a la izquierda está el corazón. So down and to the left, that's where the heart is. So you look for the leadership from those who are really degraded and at the bottom of society. And they talk about this song about, the people who are degraded. And it's just, there's so many different references to Zapatista. They talk about La Última Ola, which is kind of the last wave of social movements. And so you have so much going on here in this song. And I was wondering if, maybe for like the last 30 seconds as we're leaving, we can just kind of fade out with the other song. We don't have to listen to the whole thing, which actually has a sort of kind of a U.S. connection to it. The final song, and I'll let you get your last words in too, is Clandestino, about sort of the undocumented immigrants. And in reference to in Spain, you're talking about from the Middle East or from North Africa, but we definitely have some of the same issues, people who are living in the shadows because they don't have the right papers. And so I'd like to kind of just end on that, if you will.
Yes, this is, I think that what I love about this is I like the idea of folk music, and I know, let's see, Emma Goldman said something like to the effect of, right, if there's not going to be music at the revolution, I don't want to go. If I can't dance at the revolution, So it's like there's something about it, because these things are hugely dreadful, horrifying affairs. Revolutions are always ugly. Zapatista is no exception at all. Right? Like, this is a really like horrifying, terrifying thing. So you need some kind of, and I like this, bringing this into the beginning, like actually bringing culture into this kind of making a larger understanding, and actually bringing in culture and realizing the importance of it. So I think that it's fantastic. We're going to continue this. We're going to leave you with a few seconds of our last song here. Thank you for listening. Come down to River West Film and Video. Good night.